Hello and welcome to Do It for the Content, a podcast about content creators and I guess the struggles that we face and, everything that comes along with being a content creator. Today I've got my first guest, a good friend of mine who is a esports commentator, host and a dungeon master for our current campaign on Pixel Party. But yes, Tom, do you want to introduce yourself and summarize what it is that you do in terms of content creation?
I'm kind of like a contracted helper on everything I do, be that paid in cuddles or otherwise. So I'm not very good at coming up with my own shticks and sticking to it because I don't have that stick-to-itiveness, which I think is needed to really pursue a project or have that entrepreneurial drive. But I'm pretty good to just drag along and say, hey Tom, I got a cool idea, can you be involved? And I'll be like, yes, for I am a yes man.
That's true. That's pretty much how I would have summarized it. But yeah, basically the idea behind this podcast came about because I hit a pretty bad rut in the last couple of months in terms of motivating myself to come up with content to create, which is something I never really had a problem with before. But after reading some books and stuff, it sort of occurred to me that the inability to make content is actually a really good foundation for a content stream, because I think it's something that we all face. It's an issue that, streamers, podcasters, hosts, I feel like everyone feels that pressure at some point. It's almost like if you don't, I would actually say legitimately that if you don't feel pressured and lack of motivation at times when you are creating content, then I feel like you're not doing it right.
Or you're like stupidly hideous talented. You're like the one in a million, like super content creator.
Yeah, you got to be, you'd have to be just the best at it to not feel like that pressure. Because even if you do hit that stride, after you start doing something for a year, 6 months, whatever, you do start to feel a bit stale. Like I know I follow a lot of content creators that, YouTubers, for example, I find that the only thing that they can now really change about their content is like upgrading their kit to be like 4K, 60 frames per second. But at the end of the day, like a newsreader still just does the news. And, like Philip DeFranco is a perfect example. I feel like his format has more or less been the same for the last few years. And it's not bad, like I'm not saying it's bad, but like that repetition, even with someone that has millions and millions of subscribers, would probably get draining after a while. You'd be like, what have I got, where do I go from here? I'm 10 years in, where do I go from here? But basically for me, I think, and I think you're very similar in the sense that, there's a sense of emotional attachment to the content that we create, and that does play a big part on how we approach the way that we do things. And when we're having a bad day, it's hard to, I remember sitting out on that porch with you and we were trying to record the intro for D&D, and
we were cursed in our defense. That was not our bad. No. That was the world didn't want a D&D intro.
But the outside of the sounds, I think someone started chainsawing or something, didn't they?
Yeah, and it was like jackhammer, jackhammer, jackhammer. I'm like, oh, reprieve, chainsaw.
Yeah.
You're like, wow.
And we both just got shitty. We both just were in a foul mood afterwards because we were just trying so hard, and it made it hard to want to make content when you try here and then think there's just these outside sources, and it always feels like that. It always feels like there is some sort of force, invisible force, sort of tugging me back a little bit, being like, nope, you don't get to do this today. Like even today I was setting this up and this camera was all choppy. I'm live streaming this and it was choppy. I'm like, why? But it wasn't a particularly bad day because I do have a lot of energy for content creation at the moment, especially with this because it is something I wanted to talk about. But I guess for you, what is a good motivator? How do you try and resolve those ruts, those times when you're just like, I don't want to make content? Do you just not do it, or do you have a mantra? Do you go to your happy place? How do you beat the content blues?
So yeah, I'm in like an interesting situation in that half my content when you do commentary is like it's predominantly a paid role. It's like I am not running a tournament, so there's like a level of contractual obligation to be at a place at a time. So I think that taps into like a different type of internal motivation, or rather it doesn't tap into internal at all. It's like an external force being like, if you don't do this, you won't be invited back next time.
So it's like just work.
Yeah, so it is like work. Not to say that I don't love commentary, but it comes from like a different vein of where the motivation comes from. Conversely though, like when we do content together, you can definitely see like a motivational shift where it's like internal motivation. Like me and you have to motivate ourselves,
Mm.
or like motivate each other if we like to cross the channel. And I think that is significantly harder.
Mm.
And I don't really have a good solution to that. But it is interesting the point you'd made before about the lack of content that you can currently construct being potentially content.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Gary Vaynerchuk video he did where he was talking to somebody that didn't know what to do because they weren't yet someone cool. I may be messing it up. It's been a long time and I've consumed so much of his stuff. But the long and thick of it is he goes, well, most people aren't at the top, and most people want to ride the journey to get to the top. So if you can like start at the bottom and say like I'm really struggling, and then they can see your progress all the way through, that's really cool content, because by the time someone normally realizes that they have good content, you don't get to see the transitional period that all these other content creators would have loved to have seen.
Right. Yeah, Gary Vaynerchuk is a very good example of content, and just the way he does everything is really motivating. Actually, watching his stuff definitely. Actually, I put that at the top of my list of things. One of the top 5 things that I do when I'm feeling like I can't create is watch a Gary Vaynerchuk video, because that dude is like, he's the Yoda of like entrepreneurial, you know, business and, you know, social media, and like he's just a dude who's killing it. But yeah, though I find like it's funny because I was sitting there in bed when I came up with the idea for this. I just started reading this book about it's called How to Get Things Done. It's a very good book so far, but I just sat there and I'm like, this is the weirdest rut for me, because I used to write, I would make music, I would take photos. Like there was never a point in time where I didn't have a source to draw content from. And then I hit this rut and I just was like, I don't give a fuck about any of this. Like I just don't. Like I'm sorry, you know, I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but like I just didn't give a fuck. And that was so weird for me, because I'm sitting there and I've got like $20,000 worth of gaming equipment, video equipment, camera equipment, and I just didn't care. And you know, people are sending me opportunities to review games and go to events, and like all of it just didn't matter. And so I went to sleep that night and I woke up and I was like, no, this has to change. There's something wrong there. And then I tried to force some content out. I sat down and I started like, you know, recording a let's play of like Overwatch or something. And I was just like, this feels really forced. And then I was like, what do I want to talk about? And there's definitely things that I want to talk about that I repress and I'm not allowed to talk about because of various reasons. But the thing that I want to talk about is the inability to make content. And I was just like, as soon as I hit that, and then I saw the corn and the tent emojis, and I was like, corn tent. It just fell into place. And so I wanted to do this. It's interesting that the motivator for me to make content is to talk about the lack of motivation for content. That's like an oxymoron or a paradox or something. How do you, like, it's weird, right?
I just want to know how many W's in content.
Corn.
Is it 3?
Content.
Like if you're for branding, right? Because you're gonna have to lock this down.
Yeah.
How many W's is in content?
I feel like 1 is enough.
Then you don't get to start. Then it's content.
Content. It's content. It's corn. It's
Is that because you're content when you finish all this?
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, I don't know if the people like it.
Because I'm definitely liking like 2 or 3 W's minimum.
Yeah. So you want content. See, this is content. We're making how fucking weird is that?
How low is the bar?
No, but that's the thing. Like, do it for the content. We are like this. So what do it for the content is actually going to be is my mantra. And that's why every time I do one of these things, every time I wake up and I'm like, I don't want to do this, I don't care, I'm going to say to myself, do it for the content. And it doesn't matter. Like, there is no such thing as wrong content for me.
Oh, we're going to turn you into a Kardashian so fast.
Yeah, dude, I would love it. I would love it. But aside from this podcast, the stuff that you do, so you are a DM as well, so a dungeon master for those who might not be so well versed with the world of the D&Ds.
Yep, which is a collaborative storytelling game by Wizards of the Coast.
Don't start a partner. So how do you find the motivation? Because I feel like with DMing, not to be confused with sliding into someone's DMs. DMing.
I'm only good at one of those.
DMing, I reckon, is like, because you have to literally create an entire world from nothing, or adapt to the bare bones of a world from nothing. How is it that you find the ability to, get that all happening when you are feeling, less than motivated?
I think it kind of like taps into a different vein than like standard content creation, where it's not actively trying to like make something. In the sense, it's more me trying to like fiddle with something. Like it's like mental fiddling.
Right.
So the way I think about a lot of content, not like world building in terms of Dungeons and Dragons, is more similar to trying to break a system. So if you've read any Sanderson books out there, people who are listening, he is like famous for creating magical systems that have very strict sets of rules. Unlike say like Harry Potter, where you might go, oh, Wingardium Leviosa lifts things, but like how much does it lift? Like what is the extent? How far can I use it from? You don't really have a grounded foundation.
So
of how
the physics is
yeah. Or if you use something that's like even more abstract, like potentially like Name of the Wind is a great example because it has naming where you have no idea what the scope of the power is. He just like says a word and it's also like fire, and then it can do anything fire related, or at least it feels that way. Or in also Name of the Wind, you have like sympathy, which is like it's like controlling like entropy almost, where it's like you can transfer like energy across from one source to another. Right. It's very rigid, or it's like if I want to give you energy, as in like fire, essentially, like it's based on like how similar me and you look, because it can only transfer away depending on how similar and overlapping that is. So I try to create like a strict magic system, and then I just build outwardly from there. So I'm like, if magic worked like this, what would the repercussions be? And it's more like, you know, when you play a game and you're trying to break it, it becomes more like that. So it doesn't feel like I'm actually sitting down to work. It's like, oh, if I was playing this game and a DM said these were the rules, how would I make their life bad?
Right. Gotcha.
Which also saves me when you guys try to make my life terrible.
Because that's kind of stuff that you do in real life anyway, is that you like to know how things work. We've had lots of discussions about physics and how things work in general. So I guess for you, is the motivation that you've been given this fantasy set of parameters, and you want to see how everything works within that, and actually make a sort of a real way of like saying, okay, well, you know, this spell does this, and if you were to combine that with a real world physics that we know, that is that the joy that you get from it, and that's how you keep motivating yourself?
Yeah, so that's essentially it. It's just kind of the thing I would fall into naturally, is fiddling with systems. Because even at work when I do sales, because we use like an old DOS system to process sales, I just like take a lot of joy in working out ways to like give customers like significantly better discounts than the system would typically allow, or how I can bundle packages in ways that the system normally wouldn't allow. And I think it probably dovetails into the fact I studied like a lot of math and science through uni and high school. So like I intuitively fall back into those as my thinking patterns.
Right.
So having done more of the hard sciences, hard as in like factual quantitative stuff rather than like the subjective things. My natural way of thinking is like to like really get it down to the numbers.
And you want those absolutes, so that when we do throw you the curveball, you'd be like, well, actually, I already thought about this. So, that's really cool. Yeah, I always love trying to break those games. One of my favorite things to do, even in like content or just outside of streaming or video making or whatever, is I love messing with games. I love trying to break them. I remember when Halo 3 came out, I distinctly remember creating like YouTube videos that might even still be there. I'm sure they are, where it was me just trying to find ways to get outside the map and find all the glitches and stuff like that. And that's definitely how I play D&D. The first time I ever played D&D, I was just like, how can I break this game? And it always pisses the DM off. But again, it makes for great content.
That's actually how I got my name Courierlord. I'm sure I've told you this, but for those who haven't, it was from one of the game-breaking bugs of a game called Heroes of Newerth, which is a Dota clone, because I played all MOBAs obsessively and will forever. Essentially, there's a character called Ophelia, which is Chen in Dota, and due to lazy programming or bad programming, Chen had the ability to target like a neutral monster that lived inside somewhere on the map, and you could convert them over to your side. So if you've played like Age of Empires, you can Walla and kind of bring them over to the magical blue. But the way they programmed it was that because in MOBAs you typically only control one character, when you control a secondary character, it acted like an aura that increased the maximum health of things you controlled. Right. Which for most parts doesn't really matter, because Chen's one of the few characters that can mind control, essentially. So being able to mind control buff stuff is good. The downside to that is there's a thing called a courier, which is a tiny little one-hit-to-die minion, looks like a monkey or a chicken, and it can carry items and ferry them to and from players. And they're balanced around the idea that you can get access to items without having to return to your base. That's a really good utility, but they're really easy to kill, so you want to protect them, and you only want to drag items to and from you when it's safe. Right. But due to the way it was programmed, it would get the huge health buff that anything else was, because they're programmed as like a global aura, rather than something that's effectively put on when you click on a target and convert them.
So broken.
Yeah, so my courier, rather than having like say like 25 health, would have like 425 health,
Yeah.
which early in the game is substantially a large, like substantial number of auto attacks, and they're also magic immune, which means that the only way to kill them is to be preferably somewhat ranged, can shoot up at them.
Right.
And then what you do is you then start building items on them. So you build a Radiance if someone's a Dota player, which is like an aura that just deals damage over time. And then because it's such a large area, you just hide in the trees somewhere and the players just start dying.
Right.
And Shen was a character you could farm reasonably fast with.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and just play as the courier. And that's my troll account.
You were the Lord of Couriers.
Yeah, I was the Courierlord.
Nice. So I guess the next question that I have for you is, in your opinion, what makes good content, what makes engaging content for you personally?
For stuff I'm watching, I like... There's two things that I really like to listen to, is that stuff that is like very like data driven, I really enjoy. So if someone is like, hey, I'm doing a review of like superheroes, here's their power levels and here's why. I'm like, ooh, this is like actually source material, that'll get my rocks off.
Nice.
Or if I'm like, hey, I haven't played League of Legends in like 6 months, but I really want to know what the meta's like, because that's just the way my brain works. And someone can break down the stats in Korea and like the top tiers and say, oh, these are the characters that are used, these are why they're used, these are different builds. Or if I just like, I'll listen to like someone talk about a game I've never played, and they're like, yeah, the metagame has shifted because the buy cost of this weapon has like dropped 200 gold, which means that 15 minutes into the game hits a sweet spot where you can, I'm like, oh my god, that's beautiful. And then I'll get, like, I was watching competitive StarCraft having never played it for a long time, just because I enjoyed the optimization of like watching builds work.
Oh yeah, I'll pay that. That's it's like it's like cake.
Oh, it's so
delicious.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So anything like that really does it for me. Even optimizing other things like Dungeons and Dragons, finding ways to like make party composition work better together, as in like make the players work better together or make a campaign run smoother, I really enjoy. And then on the flip side, things that are like very real or passion driven, I'm like very much interested in people. That's my other kind of jam. So anything where I get to see the person behind the camera, I really enjoy. Or if someone is like very passionate about something, there's a famous saying, I don't remember who said it, but everyone is interesting if you just find what they're interested in. Because if someone truly loves something, the way they talk about it will really draw you in.
Yeah, no, I'll pay that. Definitely, I find that I like to see. I'm like blessed and cursed with liking just about everything. Like there is maybe a handful of things I don't like, and that's team sport. And even then, I kind of appreciate it. But like other than that, I am into cars, games, skateboarding, music, cameras, tech. Like I love just about everything. So I love finding what people are interested in too. And once you get them talking about that, it's like the well just opens up and you get everything. And you learn so much about people that way too, and it's cool. Because like for me, the reason why I started streaming and content creation in the first place, writing, all that stuff, YouTube, was because I just wanted to connect with people and start that conversation. So I'm definitely on the same page with you there in terms of what content I like to consume. In your opinion, what would you say is bad content? Like, what's something that you would just watch for 5 minutes and just be like, oh, I can't, like, is it if someone's complaining about something? Is it...
bad content for me? Or empirically bad?
No. Personal content. Like,
yeah, because like I said, I don't think there is such thing as empirically bad content, unless you take it from the perspective that you get literally no views, but then it could become good content later, so it's like very much a temporal thing.
It's relative. Like for me, I don't like political content. Like if I'm watching someone and they're like my favorite YouTuber and they're like, I've loved them, and then they start talking about politics, I'm like, beep, gone. Like I don't care. And so for me, like I always find that content like that where it's just like acknowledging the content that I can't stand is when people point the fingers at everything that's wrong with the world but never actually do anything to change it. That's what gets me. So I'm curious to see, is there something that by your personal definition is bad content?
Well, for me, it's based on the two categories I'm watching, right? If it's falling into stuff where I'm more interested in the information they're trying to feed me. So, for example, there's a League of Legends YouTuber that I won't name, but I don't like him. But I watch like his videos very regularly, and it's because he does like patch notes or like tier list updates. I'm like, this is stuff that really interests me. Whenever he puts like a Let's Play on, I'm like, no, like hard no. Other people, I'll happily watch a Let's Play, but I just don't really like the guy. But I love the content that he has, like on the other side of it. On the flip side, there are other people where they could do literally anything, and I would just like gobble that up because I'm there for the person, not for the actual like content, like the content of the content. So, for example, like CGP Grey, who on paper is an incredibly boring person. Like he's like the running joke is he's like a machine who has no like strong feelings about this way or the other. I would listen to anything he said about any topic, just because I like love the way he thinks and he's really interesting.
Right.
So like he has a podcast called Cortex. He has another one called Hello Internet, and he's got his YouTube channel. And I probably listen to the backlog of all of that. And then every time he releases anything new, like I'm 100% on board. And that's just because I love the person, regardless what the content is. He has like a episode where he'll just like talk about day planning.
Right.
And just like literally talk about how he's like set up his iPhone, his icons in his iPhone. I'm colorblind and I have no fashion sense. This is like, and I don't even like iPhones. Like it's so far removed from the stuff I enjoy. And he's talking about how his business works, and I don't own a business. And like there's nothing that relates to me. I'm just hearing about a guy arranging his icons on his phone for like 40 minutes. I'm like, this is the best.
That's so good. That's hilarious. So I guess the interesting thing about content is it definitely comes down to there's a certain element of, I guess, personal preference of the person delivering the content, because I'm the same. Like I will cut someone I like a lot more slack if they start making content poorly, like maybe the audio isn't great or the video quality isn't great or just what they're saying isn't good, or like I've watched reviews of content creators that I like of products that I use personally and they've gotten it wrong and I'm like, what? But I keep watching them. But then also like sometimes there's just people that just sort of like you immediately see them and you just know you're not gonna like their content.
Oh yeah.
Like I've done like I'm always looking at tech reviews and stuff like that. And there's countless times where I'll click on something and I'll watch the first 5 seconds and I'll just know instantly like I can't watch you. And that's the interesting thing about content, because you do have to find someone that you resonate with or is like really polarizing to you. I find like I watch a lot of people that is like nothing like me at all, and like sometimes I don't even have the same views as them, but then there's something about them that I really enjoy and I'm like, I can't look away. Why can't I look away? I've subscribed to, I've got a shirt on the way that has their name on it. I just watched like their first video. It's really fascinating. And
that's your way of coming out and saying you like Jake Paul?
No, that's definitely the line. No, but I've done stuff before like where I'll get so swept up in this like content creators life, and then all of a sudden I'm like subscribed to their channel and I've bought something from their merch store, or like a lot of photographers that I follow have like presets that make images look like kind of like Instagram filters. And, I'll spend like $20 on this like set of 4 filters and I'm like, why did I do that? And I'm like, I got so swept up, which is really interesting because in this day and age you can sort of convince people to spend money on you. Like there's no, like for example with live streaming, like what we're doing right now, there's no expectation for people to subscribe to me, but so many people do it. And I'm like, I'm not going to question that, but I do. Like this is the thing. I'm going to be real with you guys. Like I don't know why anyone would subscribe to me, and I'm not.
I don't know why anyone subscribes to you.
Neither.
Like,
and
I know you. Like I know this.
That's not me like fishing for a compliment. I just like like I had like a sub train a couple of weeks ago where like 5 people subscribed in a row, and like I was just like, wow, like I'm super grateful, and like I always will be grateful. But then like I turned the stream off and I was just like, why? Like why would you? I wouldn't spend money on me. I don't even like spending money on me. But it's like it's such a weird thing because obviously I did something that those people watching got sort of caught up in, and they felt like they wanted to go that extra step rather than just watching, which is more than enough for me. And then like people will spam my emotes in our Discord in the chat, and like it's like a picture of me like with my thumbs up smiling, and people are using that to denote a feeling that they feel. And that's so weird because like I genuinely love that feeling, even though I do question it frequently, but that's probably more to do with my own insecurities than anything. But it's so weird that someone is using my face to emulate or describe how they're feeling in a particular moment. And that's one of the wild things about being a content creator. And I think that's kind of why we do it. Like at least for me, I've never been in this for the money. I just like the community, the connections that we get. I'm not saying that there is anything wrong with doing this kind of thing for the money. I just feel like if you're doing it, you should be on the nose. You know,
You should know why you're doing it. Is that what
yeah,
you're saying?
like if you're the kind of person that like wakes up one day and it's just like, you can get paid to play video games. What the hell am I doing with my life being a desk jockey? Like, why would I do that? I'm gonna work the next 3 months, save a bunch of money, take 3 months off, go ham on live streaming, and I'm gonna try and make this a career. And you are transparent about that. I have no problem with that. The thing that gets me, the thing that irks me, is when people pretend like they're about community or trying to help others, but then like they say we a lot, but then they're the only people that sort of benefit from that content being made, and like the support that they get. Like, I know too many people, especially back when I was paying more attention to what was going on with Twitch. A lot of people would be like, we got partnered, and stuff like that. Like, that always irked me when, like, on the surface they're saying, oh, I'm doing this for the community, but then they're the ones that are cashing in the checks and buying themselves like nice things. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. I just feel like you should be transparent about it. That's all that irks me. Because then people know. They're like, okay, I mean, like, no one's gonna not... Like, I reckon if Gary Vaynerchuk, for example, put out a tweet and was just like, you guys know I'm rich, but I'm opening up a donation for, charity. And I don't want to put a cent in, but I have millions of followers. And then people will just donate all that money, and they know where it's going. Like, he could easily give away a bunch of money.
In the words of Gary Vaynerchuk, was it jab, jab, right hook?
Yeah, exactly. And, he could probably drop, 50 grand and it wouldn't make a dent on him, but it would change someone's life. But the transparency is the difference, I think. Like, he doesn't have, even if it's just using his influence to gain money to help someone else, I think that's a really cool way to do it. But if he was, like, super rich and was like, hey, yeah, I need a new car, he'd donate. And then he's just like, but hang on a second, aren't you, like, sitting on a lot of money? And what? Just because you don't want to spend the money, like that sort of, like, smoke and mirrors, whatever it is. I don't like that kind of content.
Yeah.
The way that people do it.
See, my problem is, like, I get what you're saying, I'm kind of the other way. My problem is that because in a way, right, you can't be angry at the content creator for that, because the content creator is putting out the content. And whether or not someone wants to donate to the cause is, like, on them, because it's like a buyer's market. So I'm saddened by that being a thing. It's kind of like when there's, like, the ASMR streamers that might, like, be more showy with their body, and people, like, get really annoyed at the content they're creating. It's like, well, it's not their fault that there's a market there that they can tap into.
Yeah.
Like, it's like they're creating a content. If no one wanted it, no one would consume it, and they wouldn't have that as an avenue. So it's like, don't be angry with them for, giving people what they want. It's like, they should be frustrated with the audience.
Yeah.
But I definitely understand where you're coming from, where it's like, it feels disingenuous, but the thing is, it's not like the content creators that create the disingenuous market. It's the fact that it's kind of like news cycles almost. I'm kind of being tangential. I'm running across many points.
It's all content.
But yeah, it's kind of like the news cycle, how there's no accountability now because it's just about having it. So it's like, if you like somebody, you just trust what they say, and the same with, like, news. If you trust if they say what you like, you just run with it. It doesn't really matter why they're doing it.
It becomes a truth if enough people believe it as well.
Yeah, and it's like a similar vein where it's like, if you just, as a content creator who does have a big enough influence, like, hey, throw money at me, and people will throw money at you. It is like the audience's responsibility to decide whether or not they're comfortable with doing that. But there is now the way that the social media setup is, and the landscape across media in general, that everything feels like it's going so fast. You don't feel like you have time to, like, mentally check in and decide whether or not this is something you want to be doing.
That's I guess the downfall, is that a lot of people choose very specific content creators to get their sort of gospel from, and they're like, oh, if John Smith, who I resonate with, said this is bad, then I think that's bad. Because you're right, no one really questions anything anymore, and I think companies are starting to cotton on to that, because they'll engage a certain type of influencer that they know will have a bias towards their product, when they know if they went to someone else they might not get as great a review or whatever. And it is kind of dangerous, because that's the sketchy side of content. I always try and be pretty neutral with my content, but yeah, like, we when we were working back at our old streaming gig, and they had that activation with the military, and they wanted us to basically,
long before my time.
Yeah, they were basically trying to get us to promote people to join the army by playing games that promoted teamwork or whatever, which I thought was really sketchy, because a lot of the people that watched us were, like, under 18, impressionable. They were the kind of people where, like, Jess and I would be streaming and we'd make an offhand comment about a game that we like and be like, oh yeah, Catherine's a great game. And then the next time that we saw them, like 4 people would be like, yeah, we bought Catherine. It's like, what? Okay, you picked up on that. And like, I remember, mentioning one time that I liked Kingdom Hearts or something, and then there was this dude who would jump in the chat and be like, hey, any news on Kingdom Hearts? And like just repeatedly ask me, and I was just like, I mentioned it once, man. Like, damn.
That's pretty cool, though.
Yeah, no, like it's lovely, and that's what I take very seriously now. And this is why, for me, I've been struggling so much because I'm like, hang on a second, these people are looking at me, these people are listening to me, and like my biggest fear, my biggest problem is that I don't want to mislead them. I don't want to be dishonest about any of it, and that's why I lost the motivation. And this is why this is such a great outlet for me, because I've got some other ideas about how to use like metaphors to talk about what it is that I want to talk about without potentially endangering my career, your career, Pixel Party, stuff like that. But yeah, like it is something that I do take very seriously because, and I won't say their name, but someone came up to me, and this is when I had this is the first time I realized that I needed to be responsible. And someone came up to me, I think it was the first or second Pixel Party picnic, and they pulled me in the side and they were just like, look, I've never felt welcome, and I feel welcome here.
That's really cool.
And I need this. And they said those exact words. They were like, I need this. And I was like, oh shit. Like, that I did set out to make an all-inclusive, welcoming environment with Pixel Party, and I think we've all really achieved that. But it was in that moment that I realized that that person saying that they needed this, I was like, I have to be better. I have to be better than the other people that are in this space, that are just seeing these individuals that come to their streams, that come to their events as like customers almost, that they can milk for money and subs and donations when they need a new phone or whatever. And like, it sickens me. And then that's why I didn't have anywhere to output that, so I just internalized it. And that's when I lost the motivation to do anything. But I don't know, I'm feeling pretty good after this this podcast about us being terrified of making content when we're down in the dumps. At least that's for me. But content for you and for the people listening, Mr. Tom, aka Courierlord. What is the next bit of content that you're excited to make, and why?
Well, Dungeons and Dragons. It'll be in like 30 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. Why are you excited?
I've been working on it for the last like 24 hours. Last night, studied out the module. This morning, studied out the module. This afternoon, studied the module. After this, I'll probably cram the module because I haven't written physical notes, and I just realized that, and they don't have stat sheets because I don't have time to print anything up. But yeah, so that'll be what I'll be doing.
Cool. And if that doesn't go well, how would you motivate yourself to continue to make that content?
I just enjoy doing it. So. And it's one of those things where you can feed off what everyone else enjoys. So the majority of you guys enjoy it the majority of the time. Mm-hmm. So that alone is an internal motivation.
It is good fun. It's very good fun. Speaking of which, I'm going to do a shameless plug, even though I am technically part of this project. It is the Pixel Party Dungeons and Dragons podcast called Don't Start a Party, which you can find on iTunes with Tom, aka Courierlord, DMing. You can find him on Twitter at Courierlord. I'll put all the links in the description. But thank you so much to all of you for listening to Do It For The Content. And we will see you probably in the next episode.